I was seriously interested. It was definitely somebody's fault, and I didn't.
All right. Karen, hopefully you can hear me now. Right, we still have people coming in, but want to be respectful of everybody's time, so we'll go ahead and get started. So, see here. Welcome everybody. My name is Claire Lane. I am the urban conservationist at Hamilton County Soil and Water. I have started a recording of this meeting just to let everybody know. So just housekeeping stuff. If everybody could stay muted, you can drop questions into the chat, but we will also have a Q&A at the end. So you'll be able to come off mute at that point if you want to just ask questions as well. So yeah, we're here today to talk about our landscape calorie repair removal grant program. And I've got Jodie Overmyer here with me from, well, not with me, but online with me from Marshall County. So she's going to talk a little bit about their program as well. And I've got Jacob from here in my office who's helping me kind of run the meeting and help with the chat as well. So you may see him drops a few things in the chat, some links and stuff like that. So with that, we will go ahead and get started. Okay, hopefully you all can see that screen. Okay, so we were getting a lot of inquiries about our landscape calorie repair grant program. So I thought it might be easier to just kind of throw together this little webinar and record it so that I could share it with people as they were interested. Because anytime one of these programs gets posted online or comes out in a space, there's lots of interest from across the state. And the comments always fill up with, oh, I wish my city did this, my county, my part of the state, whatever. So there's a lot of interest. I think we all know that's why you're all here. So I just wanted to share how we kind of run our program. Jodie will do the same. And yeah, like I said, we'll have time for questions at the end as well. So I always like to start off just with a little bit about Hamilton County and our SWCD, because I think that context is helpful, because I know especially for soil and water conservation districts, there's a lot of differences in like staff and capacity. So just to kind of set the framework of what kind of capacity level we are working with to make this happen. Hamilton County, we're just north of Indianapolis, about 350,000 people, really fast growing. Fishers, Carmel, Noblesville, Westfield are like our major cities that you maybe would have heard of. And then the smaller 2/3 or smaller third and reducing every day is agriculture in the county. And we have 8 parks departments as well that we work with. Our soil and water, we have 4 full-time staff, including myself and Jacob, and 3 part-time staff. And our SISMA, or Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area, which this program is really tied into, is a project of the SWCD. So Jacob and I lead our SISMA, and it's like fully under the SWCD umbrella. So a little bit about the program basics. I've got a QR code to our webpage on our website, and Jacob's going to drop it in the chat as well. But it was really just a response to a lot of public interest. We are specifically targeting landscape trees, not naturalized trees. So that graphic you see on the slide is one that we use to kind of explain the program to help people understand what kind of trees we're looking for. We do require herbicide treatment on the stump. The application has to be approved before the tree is removed because we had to draw the line somewhere. We couldn't have people applying for trees that they had removed, maybe years ago. We originally offered 50% of removal costs, but now it's just a flat $400 grant per property. And I'll get into that a little bit more in the future. But the participants of this program also qualify for our trade-in program, which is another type of program that's kind of similar and really popular as well. So I'm going to touch on that just for a second, but that's not really what this webinar was about. So our trade-in program, people can remove any invasive on the Invasive Species Council invasive plant list. We do have some preferred species, but we'll take anything off that list. And basically they qualify for free native replacements, and we run the replacements through our fall native sale where we offer native shrubs, trees, and the last 2 years herbaceous plants as well. So depending on how much they remove, and how much of what they remove, they either get a $30, $60, or $90 coupon that they can choose anything. And we have over 50 species in our sales. So they get a pretty wide selection of what they can choose from as a replacement. So we've got an example photo at the bottom of what somebody took out and then as they replaced. So if somebody participates in the Calorie Pear landscape program, they can use the same removed Calorie Pear tree to apply for the trade-in program and get a small replacement through that as well. And if there's a lot of interest in that, we can maybe find time in the Q&A to talk about that too, or maybe even have another webinar about it, because there are a lot more of these type programs in the state than there are the landscape pear programs. And a bad chart of the growth of that program, just to give some context too. Last year, we promoted a lot heavier and got a lot more applications, 209 applications. The awards are in trees. So like each $30 coupon was a tree, but now we offer herbaceous too. So it's a little muddled, but a popular program. So back to our landscape pear programs. We also collaborated with some tree services who were willing to offer discounts for participation in this program. So basically I went through treesaregood.org, which is like the arborist listing for the area. I made a list of, I don't even know, probably 25, 30, 40 different tree services to reach out to. And I just sent them like a cold call email explaining the program and asking if they would be willing to offer a discount. And you're going to get access to a folder that has all the resources of our program. And I have a copy of that email in the folder. So kind of the trade-off there was that we would be offering publicity of their involvement in the program. So I had 3 or 4 respond right away favorably. And then once the program launched, I had another 2 tree services contact me that they wanted to participate. So most of those partners are offering a 15 to 20% discount, but at least one of them is just offering a flat rate removal for Calorie Pear, no matter what size it is. People aren't required to use these tree companies. They just can if they want to maximize their cost savings. And a little over half we've seen so far are utilizing the partner tree service. And at least one of those companies is generating a lot of business for themselves by advertising the program directly through their channels as well. How we promote, all the regular places, big on social media, and it really runs through all the like neighborhood channels, HOA. We have a lot of HOAs and things like that. Our HOA partners, we do press releases. Our Parks Department partners help share either word of mouth or they're on their social media. The SWCD newsletter, and then promoting it with our municipal partners and like different city newsletters that they distribute as well. And that's just a lot of pictures, some of the proof of removal photos. The requirements in our process, we require that the tree be 20-inch circumference at 4 feet off the ground. We did that versus DBH, diameter at breast height, just to have something easier that the public could capture themselves. So we settled on that 20-inch because we were trying to like hit the line between something that was small enough that could be removed maybe by a landowner, or wouldn't be much of an investment. We do require that the stump is treated with herbicide within 30 minutes of the last cut. Hard to enforce, but we do our best. It's mature landscape specimens only, and the landowner works directly with the contractor and gets reimbursed from us. So we don't serve as like a middleman with the contractor or the tree service. So how that actually works is the landowner will get a quote and then they fill out our application online. We use photos to verify the size, species, and the location of the tree on the property. We don't go out and do any checks. And I found that it can be helpful to utilize Google Street View if you want to like take a look at a property, especially obviously if the tree's in the front yard, and check either species, like if you need help with the species or just checking that that tree is in that place. So I'll do some spot checks on that for the most time, for sometimes, but we also like encourage them to have something in their photo that helps us see where the tree is, like making sure the house is in the background or something like that, not just a picture of a Callery pear tree in grass that they could have grabbed off the internet anywhere. They're notified of acceptance in the program within 3 weeks. So I give myself some leeway so that in busy times, I can have enough time to review the applications. Normally it's a lot faster than that. And then once they're approved, they have 2 months to get the work done. And that timeline has seemed to be okay for people so far. So once they have the tree removed, there is an online form where they submit their final invoice that shows that it's paid and photos showing that the tree was removed. And then for our program, the payment is issued as a check at our next SWCD board meeting. You'll see that the popularity of the program, we've run out of funds really quick every time we've opened it. So whenever we run out of money, I take the application down off the website, but I put up a short little like name, email, and city form on the website that people can fill out. So it's not a wait list for more funds per se, but we use it as a notification list. So then whenever we get more money in from a grant or whatever, I can email that list and say, hey, the program's back open, application's back up. And I was careful to include city on that form as well so that I could track interest across our different communities. Ideally, so I use that information to reach out to the different cities and say, there's this much, this many people interested in removing this many trees in your community. Is that something, trying to work toward funding from the individual communities so that we could administer the program in their individual communities. It was really bad timing because this all started the same time as Senate Bill 1. So they're, slashing and burning budgets. So we haven't had any luck getting the cities to pay for it yet, but hopefully someday they'll be able to throw some funding in. So here's our application, the QR code there. It's online through a form, which I'm sure most of you know, there's tons of different form services out there. We use one called Cognito Forms. There is a free level, but we're on a plan that costs $40 a month. I feel gross doing it, but there is another QR code that's our referral code. So if anybody wants to sign up for Cognito, you can use our code and we both get a discount, but no pressure. That being said, I do really love Cognito. We use it for all of our forms, all of our cost share applications. It's basically just like a really powerful, Google Forms or whatever you might use. So check out the application online. I'm not going to go through each thing we ask for, but I would encourage you to look at it because we do ask all the questions for pretty specific reasons. And it's really helpful because you can give different like examples, like what you see on the screen here. Like we have an example photo showing how we want them to measure or how we want them to photograph the circumference measurement of the tree and submit that. Another thing about Cognito is just that it's really powerful as far as automation. So basically the application, they fill out a form and submit it. It sends me an automatically generate something for me to review, as well as sending a copy of the application to the person. And then everything's kind of built into one form. So once I approve it, it sends them an automatic message with the specifics that I enter into the form of their grant and the approval and the due date and all of that stuff. And it has a button on it that once they're finished, they just click that button and it opens up like the second half of the form basically. And that's where they enter all of their like final information. That comes back to me, I approve it, and then I have it set up where it even automatically generates the basically the paperwork at the end that I give to our office coordinator so she can cut the check. So how's it going? 2024 was our first year. We had a Clean Water Indiana grant that was primarily dedicated to like broader scale invasive species work, like acreage in a forest. So we set some of that money aside to run a pilot program for this, just to gauge how it would work and gauge interest. All of the funding was gone in 3 weeks, and the wait list or notification list built up really quick as well. So from that first year, we used that CWI money and added in some of our money as well, just because it was so popular, and ended up approving 27 removals. And those, primarily because it was a CWI and there's match requirements, that was half of the cost of the tree removal, up to $400. It was pretty hard to administer because I had to spend a lot of time looking at the quotes they submitted and like pulling out chipping to not include chipping, and like if there was other work on the invoice and all of this. The application wasn't as streamlined, so I was moving stuff over into Excel and using mail merges to generate the documents out of Excel. So that's just, it was a lot of extra work administratively on my part. In 2025, we budgeted a pretty significant amount for soil and water budget to run the program. And we ended up we budgeted 10,000 originally, and then ended up adding more and ended up spending 22,000 for 55 approvals. And again, all of those were allocated immediately in the first month. We did get a small Duke grant to supplement some of that. But since we were out of the CWI requirements, we just started offering flat $400 grants per property. Made a lot of application improvements. So like I mentioned in the last slide, it's that all-in-one form now. And the reminders are generated automatically. The documents are generated automatically. So that's saving a ton of my time. Also, cuts down on room for mistakes as far as like data tracking. I use online forms for anything. We don't take paper applications for anything now. because I am not going to be out there like hand jamming data into Excel. So I would definitely recommend, whether you have one that your city or district or whatever uses, spending the time to develop a really nice online application will save you a lot of effort. We also got a lot of publicity on the program as well. Like WTHR, which is local here in Central Indiana, came out and did a really nice news story on the program, and it was in a lot of newspapers as well. So it just raises the profile of people, being interested in invasives for sure if they know that there's money attached to it. Improvements we've made. Originally, we didn't require a photo showing the measurement of the tree circumference. So we kind of just had to guess. Like, they would measure it and put the number in, but we had to guess if it matched based off the photos. So now we actually require that picture, and that has worked really well. We also kind of require an additional photo to support the tree ID, because sometimes that was a little bit tricky in some situations. And we added a lot of clarity on the application, really like specifically calling out what we're asking for, and making sure they know that if we can't ID the species, it's not approved. Or if they don't submit everything, it's denied. They can apply again, but we don't hold it for any supplemental info. So like, we don't wait for them to submit the photo we need a week later. It's just denied, and they're welcome to apply again. And that's really because it was so popular that there were people behind them that did fill out the application correctly. So we wanted to move on to those people, and then, the people that didn't do it right have to go to the back of the line. And we made a lot of applications to the final submission form. Those automations of the correspondence and the internal documents has really saved a lot of time, especially if we're doing this on a big scale. If you have a small amount of money and are doing it on a smaller scale, it might not be that bad, but we were really getting to the point where we needed to be able to move through things faster. So the impact so far, are we saving the world in terms of calorie pair? No, unfortunately. But we really are supporting people who have interest in invasive removal, people who, have wanted to get that pear out of their yard, but just couldn't financially. And in a lot of the final documentation, we really encourage people to like tell their friends or neighbors or HOA why they're having it removed. And spread the word, because that's more impactful than us asking someone to remove their calorie pair, especially a landscape tree. But if they see a neighbor do it, and they understand why it matters to them, that really, builds more action. And we're building a lot of contacts, especially as we try to grow our SYSMA and need more volunteers. It's great to be building contacts who are willing to take action. They're willing to spend some money to get something done. They're willing to actually step up and do something on their property. So they're not maybe as complacent as some other people who might be really casually interested. And it's just meeting a public need. There's a lot of interest. That's why, we got a lot of requests for this. So that's why we did it. So even though it's not, some ecological solution to the problem, of course, there is an impact. We've taken out 87 trees so far. So that's almost 1 million potentially to almost 25 million seeds prevented from entering the local landscape, and 63 US tons of above ground biomass estimated, which is the weight of 11 adult elephants. So it's not nothing. And we're proud of it. And it's been good to just bring a lot of new people into kind of the world of soil and water, so we can connect them with the other resources we have. Okay,
Claire.
so now we have Jodie Overmyer from Marshall County. They're kind of like the OG in this space. They did the first removal program like this several years ago. So Jodie's going to kind of walk us through their program and how it was different, and her thoughts on it.
Okay, real quick, we have one question in the chat. Emily Finch
Yeah.
asks, with the $400 flat rate, are you still requiring they get a quote first? And about how much does it cost for them to have the trees removed?
So the like spectrum of cost on some of these removals has been insane. I don't have the data in front of me, but oh my gosh, some people, I haven't said anything, but you almost want to be like, oh, you should get some more quotes. So yeah, I don't have that in front of me. We are still requiring the quote first. We potentially could move to like changing that amount based on the size of the tree, but I'd like to get a little bit more data about the costs compared to the size of the tree first. So we might look at that at the end of this year to see if we want to shift to that kind of scale. But I've seen everything. I mean, we have that one company, that partner company is doing just flat removals for like 400 or 450. So those people are basically getting it for free. But I've seen it all the way up on the other end to like multiple thousands. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Jody. I think you're muted.
Okay. Now can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Claire. You guys, your program is awesome. It's a little more techy than mine was. I'm not that good at that stuff, so I'm impressed. Plus, I'm in a smaller community. We don't have as many municipalities. Just some towns that actually have decided not to allow pears to be planted anymore in their towns. So that's a good one too that we need to encourage. So a little bit about myself, just briefly. A lot of you know me already and have heard me talk before. My background is in landscaping. So I came into the Soil and Water Office after working in the landscape and nursery industry for over 30 years for a very large nursery here in Marshall County. I quit planting pears for reasons that really didn't have anything to do with being invasive. Pears are very weak wooded, suffer a lot of storm damage, and they're also very susceptible to fire blight. And so they are disease prone as well. So when people would come in to talk to me at the nursery or I would do a design, I really wasn't putting pears in or recommending pears for many years before I knew that they were becoming a problem. And that became evident to me years ago when I was driving my children to Florida for spring break and seeing all these pears along the right-of-ways along the interstate and going, these trees were supposed to be sterile. Why are we seeing so many of these seedlings just crowding out redbuds and dogwoods and all the native ornamentals, native trees? So I was distressed about that for a long time ago that I was seeing that. And then the DNR actually did a press release about it. And Claire asked me the year, I don't remember exactly, but it was, 14, 15, somewhere in there. And so I started then trying to discourage people on that premise. Just, we're seeing these trees becoming invasive, and I recommend these trees instead. So I quit recommending them. My boss didn't care for that. He said he had a lot of pears to sell. That didn't make me very happy that he wasn't willing to go along with that. But so when I was hired by the conservation district, that was one of my first things that I wanted to tackle because that was my background. I didn't come from a farming background. I couldn't really recommend the farmers what practices to use or anything, but I felt pretty strongly about battling invasive plants, specifically burning bush and barberry and of course pears. So the first bounty program that I offered the very first year I was in the district was for burning bush and barberry. And I put a bounty out on them, made a wanted poster, and it got out there and was very well received. I learned a little bit about how to go about doing a bounty program. And I offered $50 for replacement and removal of those plants with a good native plant. And I made a list of good native plants. And I felt pretty confident in my list as good replacements. And so people would take out their burning bush and barberry and then go buy a good native replacement, and I would refund them up to $50. So then after I got my feet wet with that program, then I decided to work on the bounty for the pears. So I applied for an Arrowhead RC&D grant. My district agreed to give me some money as well. And so I implemented that program in 21, I think, or 22. So Claire has my contract. I think I came up with that on my own. I was thinking about it. Did I use anyone else's for a guideline? I don't think I did. So one of the things that I wanted to do from the beginning was I did realize that people didn't want to take out a large landscape sized tree in their yard that was possibly giving them some shade and et cetera, and put a seedling in. So I thought they would want to replace it with something a little more substantial. So I made the payout larger, up to $500, and it was a 75% cost share. So, and part of that cost share amount could be removal, because again, I realized that if someone's got a landscape size pear, just like Claire stated, it's going to be costly to remove. And so I wanted to allow part of the cost share to be for removal. And then they could buy a 2-inch caliper balled and burlap tree, really, for that matter. Again, I wanted it to be a native tree. I preferred it to be a native tree. I did allow some exceptions. If they removed a pear, I would let them plant, say, a white crab apple. I mean, it's not necessarily native, but it's not causing any problems either. But I strongly encouraged serviceberry and redbud and other good native trees. So, and as Claire stated, I did get a lot of coverage in local media. I got to be on TV. I was contacted by the TV station. I got a lot of shares on Facebook posts. So the educational component, I was very excited about. I feel like we really reached a lot of people. And so I was very excited about that too. So it's a program that I would consider implementing again. Some of the problems, one of the things that Claire didn't state, which I know a lot of you are aware of, sadly, most people don't have just one pear in their yard. Pears were one, from a landscape standpoint. They are very fast growing, and nursery standpoint too. They grow very well in a nursery setting. They grow fast, they're caliper up fast. So they were really used heavily by contractors. They grow in almost any kind of soil conditions. They're not picky about soils. And so people, and because of all of those reasons, they were fairly inexpensive in a nursery situation. So people would go to a nursery and they wouldn't buy one, they would buy 10 and plant them on either side of their driveway to line their driveway with. And so this has been another situation that has always bothered me. And in my contract, I did make a little statement on the back. Now, there's no way to enforce this, but I put a statement on the contract that says homeowner must agree to remove all pears on property eventually. I'd like to think that once they know the problem, they would be happy to eventually remove all of their pear trees. I don't know if that has occurred, but I wanted to make a point of that. So that's how my program worked. And Claire's got my form. Anybody is more than welcome to use it as a a guideline like I said, I got good participation. I got a lot of coverage. And I think it was successful overall. So that's what I have to say about it. And I'd be happy to answer any questions too.
Awesome. I'm sharing that form you have now.
Okay.
So yeah, and it's here. I'll put it here because everyone can access it. Sorry. Trying to get to the shared thing for everybody. There we go. So this QR code, and I'm sure Jacob will drop it in the chat, is that cloud folder I talked about. So it's got this presentation slides, our example, our policy document, our application, our approval letter, our stump treatment guide we give to people, the email I sent to tree services, an info sheet that I provide to our partner tree services so they really understand the program. And it also has a copy of Jodie's application as well on there. So yeah, with that, I know there was one great question in the chat so far.
Yep, the question is, are you providing the same support even if the homeowner wants to do the removal themselves?
Thank you, Jacob. So for us, that's really why, like, we tried to find that line between for the 20-inch requirement, because we thought below that it's something they could do on their own. So no, we're not for our program paying people to do the work themselves, because ideally ours was to help offset costs for trees large enough that they couldn't remove it on their own. So that's how ours works. So yeah, at this time we're really, oh, okay, Emily's saying the QR code is working, but that link was not in the chat. So we'll try to get the correct link going there. But yeah, if people want to either type questions in the chat, or feel free to like turn on your video or come off mute if you want to ask questions, or we can just kind of open it up to discussion as well. It doesn't just have to be questions for Jodie and I. Anybody has anything?
One of the other things, can you still hear me? Am I unmuted?
Nope, you're good.
Okay. One of the other things that Annabelle was here on my read attack, and she was asking me about, are we doing anything at a state level? Again, because of my landscape background, I have helped Dawn Slack at the Green Expo in Indianapolis. I'm helping her again this year. We're on a third year having a booth there. And so, you know, I know a lot of these people from many, many years in the business. And so I'm happy to call them out, grab them out of the aisle and say, hey, you know, you need to quit planting these plants and start using these, and stop growing them, because pears, burning bush, miscanthus grasses, they're not on the terrestrial plant rule list yet. So the only way we're going to get landscapers to quit using them is to try to inform them. And also this outreach to homeowners is big, because they'll quit asking for them. And that's probably how that's going to have to happen. The demand will have to decrease before they'll quit growing them, because like I said, they're very easy to grow, so, and very profitable. So we're kind of, you know, that's kind of an uphill battle for that part of it. But I do participate. Dawn has asked me, and you know, I'm happy to go. And so we are trying to approach the growers.
Annabelle asked in the chat, what if the homeowner just wants to remove the trees? Do they have to replace? For our program, we don't require them to replace it. But for most of our communities, these are in like HOA style communities, and they're required to have probably like 2 trees in their front yard. So their HOA is probably going to be coming at them if they don't replace it. That's how ours works.
Mine was a removal and replacement. But I would consider removal only.
Looks like there's a hand raised from Huntington.
Hi, so this is specific for Claire and for Hamilton County. Your rule for a 20-inch caliper removal, and that was a minimum, I believe. So is there a thought pattern? Like, what's the thought pattern behind it? Because especially for some pairs barely can get past 10 inches without having any storm damage on it. So I'd just like to understand that thought pattern.
Honestly, nothing scientific or anything like that. It was just kind of like looking at the different sizes and at seeing at what point we thought the average person could take it down themselves versus having to pay someone to do it. Not scientific at all.
Hey, this is Amy from the Tippecanoe Invasive Group. Budgeting and money is always sort of the confining factor. So how low would you go if you didn't have the full budget amount? How low of an offer would you go to people? If you can offer 400 right now, is 200 worth it? Would you still have takers for 200 or less?
My instinct is that we would still have a lot of interest at 200. People I chat to about the program seem pleasantly surprised at 400. So I think 200 would still be really good. Below that, I don't know. I'm not sure below that.
How many of the participants do stump grinding?
Almost all. But I mean, like I said, most of ours, like in an HOA setting, they can't keep a stump there. So that's really tricky with the herbicide requirement. Because if, the company wants to grind it out the same day, they don't want to come back. So we really try to stress, like in the documentation, how important it is for the homeowner that they push that, because otherwise, they're going to have so many sprouts. That part, I can't really enforce. So we just try to educate.
Yeah.
Those, rather than to remove the stump, you can get away with, grinding it out, which is costly. If you treat the stump or cut it off below the surface, unless you want to tree in that exact same spot, there's really no reason to, if you treat the stump to prevent resprouting, and move the new tree to a slightly different location. So unless you've got one in your landscape bed that's you've worked around that you want it in that exact spot, you can have it out in the yard, just cut the stump off below the ground, put some, soil on top of it, reseed it, and you probably would have pretty good success with that without the expense of grinding.
We've got a question in the chat here, whether we've ever offered higher limits for those removing multiple trees and whether you've considered expanding your species list.
We don't offer, if it's multiple trees, it's just, ours is just $400 per property. So like Jodie mentioned, we've had 1 or 2 of like a tree line driveway. And they took down all of them, and they took their $400 and we're happy with it. So yeah, we're trying to make the money go as far as possible. So we can't like sink that much money into just one property. So that's how we've approached it. As far as expanding to Tree of Heaven, 2 questions about that. I love the idea. We haven't pursued that yet, just because of the amount of interest we already have. I think Pear is more well-known, and we don't really have any landscape planted tree of heaven.
Right.
So
Claire is right about that. So tree of heaven's one that you would not walk into a garden center or nursery and buy a tree of heaven. Some of the other species I know that Dawn's looking at and they're following pretty closely that are used a lot in the landscaping is the tree lilac. So that's one that's still used in municipalities for street trees. It kind of started out being an alternative to pears, but now is starting to show up according to Dawn. So that's one I think we're watching. Right offhand, I can't think of any other trees. I know they're watching Zelkova. So there's a couple other trees that they're tracking data on and watching. But from a standpoint where a homeowner is planting an ornamental that's a problem, the pear is the big one.
It might be a really good way to get ahead of some of those others versus, we're so far behind on pear. There's no answer,
Right.
So that could be a really great idea. Heather is asking, is it one property per year or for their lifetime? Is that too hard to track? I'm not sure that we address that in our policy, actually. We haven't had any reapplications at this point. I do ask, I think it's the first question of the application is, have you applied before? So at this point, I think the priority of giving more money to someone who's already gotten money would be pretty low. But that might be something I want to look at our policy to address. Did you have anything about that, Jodie? Was it one and done for you guys, or?
I actually did have a gentleman that took out 5. All I did was pay him the max amount because I did say on my contract that I allowed up to $500. So
okay, so just $500 one time.
Right.
Well, any other questions out there? Yeah, so considerations with spotted lanternfly and tree of heaven. It's a really good idea. Okay.
Tree of heaven is one that we're not seeing so much in like the suburbs as such, or municipality, not too many municipalities either. We're seeing tree of heaven more in rural areas, I think, when I go out and do surveys and woodlands and stuff. So most people have not brought in tree of heaven into a subdivision or a, so that's something about them that's different.
I will say we have a ton of urban tree of heaven, but it really doesn't seem like you said, it's not, I don't see it being intentionally planted right now,
No.
But there's a ton growing up just where areas aren't mowed. But it doesn't seem like a great fit for a program like this because it takes so much effort to treat it before you cut it. And it gets so huge, the cost to cut it down would be a lot more than calorie pear.
Right.
Emily mentioned in the chat the next invasives, golden rain tree, Amur cork tree, and Japanese tree, lilac. Good ones to look ahead for.
And also, I just remembered another one that I don't know why I didn't think of it until just now. It popped in my brain. Norway maple. So Norway maple is definitely one that's being used in landscaping still. And of course, the most well-known cultivar of it is Crimson King maple. People love those burgundy leaf plants. And so that's one that should be addressed as well, I think. But boy, try to get people to take those out of their lawn. Good luck.
Awesome. All right. Well, seems like that's pretty much all the questions we have. Do check out that shared resource folder because I really I put everything we've got in there. And I'll probably, well, we'll have the recording of this as well. If there's anyone in your organization you want to like see it or whatever. But I'm an open book as far as like sharing what we've got or what's worked or what hasn't. I'm sure Jodie is the same. So feel free to email us or reach out. We're happy to answer questions. Yes, that's fine to share that folder, that resource folder with other people who are interested. That'd be great. So yeah, good luck everybody, and hopefully all working together, we can make it available to more people and have a bigger impact. So special thanks to Jodie for joining me in this and for Jacob for helping on the tech side. But yeah, everybody have a great rest of your week.
Bye. Thanks, Claire, for asking me.
Yeah, that was a really nice group.
Thank you so much.
Pleased with that. Yeah, thank
Okay.
you. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.